pyramids is the clue to bringing everything together. The pyramid is going to make everything fit. And then going into the pyramid of Onyx and looking at the pyramid text, it's really getting into the pyramids themselves and getting people to understand why the pyramid shape. When you think and you look around the world, remember I showed you guys there's pyramids all over the earth. Why that shape? What's up with the shape? Why the pyramids? What's up with the capstones? Why is everything the way that it is when it pertains to the pyramids? It is really the clue to putting together this whole mystery. So now it's much later. And we have a lot of information to get into. But first I want to really get into my trip to Kemet a little bit. I'm going to talk more about it at the end of the DVD. But, my purpose in going to Kemet was to really do, personal research and research for, upcoming videos. Some of the stuff that I seen in Kemet, that I researched in Kemet, will be talked about in this DVD. But for the most part, a lot of it has to come into play in DVDs to come and videos to come on YouTube or what have you, because it's a lot more stuff to go to it to get people to understand what I'm talking about. So, this was a personal trip for me that I was planning for a long time to go back. They make sure that it's really expensive to fly to Egypt for a lot of people because they don't want a lot of people to go there. And a lot of people would rather spend their money on something else than to blow, thousands of dollars on a trip to Egypt, let alone an expensive hotel, but it's the most secure. And I'm going to talk about that later because that plays a major part into a lot of people going to visit Cairo and visit the pyramids. And I got a lot of respect for people like Azra Kwesi and his wife, who does the Kemet New Tour and take people on trips. Those trips are about, over 3,000 per person. And I understand why. It's a lot that goes with it, but it's a lot. I actually think that's a good price. It's a lot that it entails that people would need. And when you look at everything that the trip includes, I think a lot of people getting a good bargain at that price. And it might be something that I might end up taking part in down the line, depending on the situation in Cairo. But the woman brings us into this planet. It's something that we all understand and know. So when you really get into it, and it's just, we bombarded by so much, it's stuff that we really don't think about, but we can settle it all right there with just that question. She didn't birth herself. Everything comes into existence. Every human came into existence by a woman. How did she come into existence? She had to be created. It's just that simple. So we can, right there, just by getting that technical, X out evolution. We can get rid of it. No, we didn't. And I went through all that on YouTube, and I went through all that. That's why I got into this stuff. So when we get to this final part, you will really be able to grasp that. We did not come about through evolution. Plain and simple. When you look at the animals, they have a different consciousness. They have a different comprehension. Plain and simple. Billions of insects and animals on the planet. Not one of them has the comprehension of man. And we understand that because one, you can be driving down the road. Just give you a quick example. And the more you drive, the more roadkill you see. And you have to start thinking to yourself, how stupid can these animals be to not just wait for the cars to go by? I mean, this is your life we're talking about. It's over if you get hit by this car. How dumb can they be, to not just wait till there's absolutely no cars, till they're 100% sure to cross the street. Yet we see countless animals, birds, getting hit by cars, roadkill. We see flies flying right at your car at Mach 10 when you're going down the road, thinking that, your window, they're able to fly right through and come out the back. And, the consciousness of animals does not equal the consciousness of man. So if we evolve as they did, we will have their consciousness. We do not. But it's clear to see that this planet and the animals that was here, that are here, or was here too, was used to create these bodies that we have now. It's just that simple. There's no way around it. You can't look at the ape and not see you. I don't care if you're black or white. The hands look exactly like us. We know. We share these genes and we share this DNA, as I got into. So we are a, unique creation in the universe, plain and simple. I don't think people understand how complex our brain alone is, how complex the human body is. A lot of thought went into the creation of us. We are seriously complicated. This is not something that is just put together out of the blue. We are very complex people, and when you think about something, creating something that has to hold this much energy and a consciousness, I mean, it's amazing that they were able to do what they did in our creation. So we understand that we share genes, DNA with animals, and that we also share DNA and genes with whoever our creator is. The thing is, it's really hard to tell exactly where this creation took place, but it obviously didn't take place here on Earth. It had to have taken place somewhere else. So we are told, the Earth is unique, that the Earth is the only planet that can support life, and da-da-da. And then we found out later on that, possibly people live on Mars. There's possibly people living on Titan, which is one of the moons of Saturn. And of course, the Greek gods, in Greek mythology, the Titans were, in Greek mythology, and a lot of the moons of Saturn are named after those Titans. The Titans were giants. Kronos, the god of Saturn, all that is going into Greek mythology, as I said, not a coincidence. Now, again, I talked about this before, the movie Prometheus. When they go into that planet, they fly past Saturn and basically land on one of the moons of Saturn, which is where they find out that aliens created human life. They go into a place that has the atmosphere of Earth, and they find out that these aliens that look, like us, we look like them, created us. And, you can't get much more clear than that and get into the understanding of what that movie is trying to tell us, which is why I use it a lot. And I was shocked at, the fact that they put that movie out the way that they did. It's giving away what a lot of people have already come to realize in esoteric circles a long time ago. As I said, this information is old. It's kindergarten stuff. It's stuff that a lot of people who done their research is going to come to this same conclusion. So for some of you, this information might be like, wow, but this information it's been out here. It's been there. And a lot of people have gotten to that point, which you'll be at the end of this DVD, where you just say, okay, well, I got to learn everything else. There's a lot more to come to it that goes with it, but at least I got to this point where I can understand the situation that's going on, possibly going on here on the planet. So when you step back and start looking at the picture, that we were definitely created and put here on this planet, and everything that, that entails, all the questions that start to pop up when you start dealing with that aspect of us and, our purpose and, why were we created, what's going on and everything like that. Then, all the pieces start to fall into place when you start looking and searching and going back through history and looking at stuff. And as I will show you in this video, and as you will find out through your own research, there are so many different stories, so many different lanes you can go. The only thing you can do is connect the dots and put the pieces together that fit. Because when you get to this level of knowledge and information, when you start getting to this point, the only people that have the 100% true, correct answers, I would say, or the true story, are the powers that be, the people who actually know. As I said, we can only put together where the facts lead us, which is what I have done, and what a lot of people have done. And it's cool because I try to stay away from, this is why I don't really watch too many YouTube videos, where I don't really go into too many other people's stuff. And I find out, through a lot of you guys that, when I'm talking about stuff and I put stuff out, that people always say, well, have you read such and such book? They came to the same conclusion. I go and read the book and I'm like, wow. It validates my research to know that, before I came to this conclusion, somebody else had already came to the conclusion, and it validates my research and lets me know that the path that I was on and looking for all this stuff and trying to put together the pieces, I was on the right path blindly. On my own, just trying to figure it out, and was coming to the same conclusion as everybody else. That's validation. That's when you've done right research, You've done research, you followed the breadcrumbs, and it led you to the correct place. So dinosaurs ruled for millions of years during the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous period. And during that time, while they was ruling, while they was on the earth, there was something going on in the universe. There was Star Wars. So, Star Wars begins a long time ago in the galaxy far, far away. There was, Star Wars. And everything points to it actually being a war in space. So when you go to the Bible, remember the Bible talks about the war in heaven. And, what is heaven? The heavens is basically space, as I talked about before. We understand that the heavens is space. Even when you go into Genesis and read about the firmament and everything like that, it's giving you the hint that the heavens is basically space. So there was this war. Everything points to this war happening. And in the Bible, we know, Satan fought the war, and he was basically banished to earth because of the war and everything like that. And when you understand esoterically who Satan is, esoterically, Satan represents us black people. Now, Satan has many aspects, of course, and you have to understand what aspect it's being used. But Satan represents us. Now, even though when you read the Bible in Genesis, it doesn't immediately get into this war. We understand later in the Bible it speaks about the war, but we understand that the war happened before humans was created. Because we know when you get to the garden, Satan was in the garden, around the time humans was created. So he had to be banished to the earth, before we was created. So we understand that. So the key word is long ago in Star Wars. Long ago, something happened. There was this huge war. And from everything that we can ascertain, my research, it seems like the war was over energy. Plain and simple. And it's going to be a lot of things I can't really dig deeply into because it's going to take too much time. And there's a lot of things you're going to need to understand before I get into these things. There's a lot of prerequisites, which is why we'll get into these stuff in later videos. But it was war. And the Bible gives us that hint. So we understand esoterically that Satan represents black people and that our reptilian brain represents Satan and basically our fall in consciousness. Then, things really start fitting and making sense. So it's telling you, one, Satan fell because of the war. He fell because of the war. We fell because of consciousness. We are here because of our fall, because of this war. Plain and simple. So when you look at Satan falling and his angels being locked away, as Jude talked about, his angels was locked away in chains. His angels represents Satan's power. Plain and simple, Satan wouldn't be able to wage war without his angels. But the angels of Satan basically represents our consciousness, which is our powers. So Satan's angels being locked away is a metaphor for saying that our consciousness was locked away, our DNA was locked away, and we was basically banished here. Now, understand, as I'll explain later, this didn't happen immediately, after the war. It seems as if the war was going on, and we came here to this planet, or we was put here on this planet. We came here due to some kind of capacity involving war, and possibly the dinosaurs was wiped out to make way for us to come here. Because this definitely wasn't our planet. It definitely belonged to them. And that's clear when you look at all the evidence. And we have to really think about what I'm saying here as far as on a power level. And when you start getting into these esoteric circles that understand how they speak galactically about things, which we're going to get into down the line because it's so much, you understand that it's levels in power. And they speak about, basically 5 levels. And it's weird because the 5 levels can represent 5 dimensions, or you can kind of, put them in that order. But you're talking about people mastering the planet that they on. Mastering the planet and using all the planet's resources. That's 1. Then mastering the sun. So you master the planet, all its resources. You master the sun and how the sun works with the planet to help you, basically expand. And you master the Earth, the Sun, and then you master your solar system. So Earth, Sun, your solar system, everything, all the planets that's close, and you understand how to harness and use the energy of the planets close to you and the resources from the planet close to you. That's 3. So you have the planet, the sun, the solar system, then a galaxy. Harnessing the power from your entire galaxy. Understanding every planet, being able to travel to every planet, which would then, once you master all that, would give you the power to dimensionally shift, to shift dimensions. And this is stuff that we'll get in later, but you got to understand that these 5 stages are what I guess if you want to get into the names like Anunnaki and extraterrestrials and ultraviolets and all these powerful beings that's supposed to exist and the universal laws that they are governed under, which we have a problem with right now, which we'll get into, is what's dealing with a lot of this stuff. So when we get into this down the road, because again, there's a lot of stuff you got to understand before we really dig into this, it's going to make a lot more sense. But for me, touching on a lot of the videos that I put out before, is just going to kind of make a lot more sense as we go. So as I've said, there's a lot of aspects to Satan. You have good, bad, light, dark, masculine, feminine, black, white, what have you. So many different aspects to Satan. You just have to understand in what aspect he's being referred to at any given time. So, it can be very confusing if you're not familiar with the esoteric teachings of Satan and all of the occult knowledge. So this is why there's a lot of confusion when it involves him, because, he can really Satan can mean so many different things. So you really got to get into the esoteric teachings, which I have a lot more coming up on Satan down the line, to really grasp everything. So if you've been watching the videos on YouTube and everything like that, you kind of sort of should have an understanding that he represents so many different things. So now it's clear that there was a civilization here on Earth that was highly advanced. Now the Egyptians and the Sumerians talk about a global society, a world society, which explains all the pyramids all over the planet. Plato talks about Atlantis, and that he heard about Atlantis from the great Greek Solon, and Solon heard the story from the ancient Egyptians. And a lot of people say that, the design for the pyramids basically comes from Atlantis, but, it's pyramids all over the planet, so you can't really tell by that. But, from my research, and again, this may be tough for a lot of people to grasp if you haven't seen everything. But from my research, there definitely was a war. There's no way around that. You can see that there clearly was a war on this planet, and that we, as a result of this war, these bodies was created. These bodies was created, and our consciousness was put into these bodies, the consciousness of our creators, or, when you really get into it, who you are, your consciousness goes all the way back to, whatever you want to call them. These beings that created us, aliens, whatever you want to call them, your consciousness goes back to them. Plain and simple. The consciousness was put into these bodies. We were put here on this planet to grow. As I said, it was a war, and I believe this war was over energy. And was put here to grow in consciousness and energy. This was an evolutionary planet. We was put here to grow. That was our purpose. And Atlantis was a result of people being here and prospering and everything going right for a period of time until, Atlantis sank and, war began here. Now, these beings that we were at war with, no matter how you want to slice it, whatever you want to call them, the Demiurge, Satan, aliens, the bad guys, whatever you want to call it, they exist. There's no way around that. And again, a lot of this stuff sounds, kind of spooky, but when you get to a point in research, it's undeniable. It's just no way you can go around that. Because if it wasn't for these beings and us dealing with some kind of intelligent being, then we're dealing with humans. We're dealing with normal humans that's just smart and somehow been able for the last, few thousand years to do what, been able to do what they have done, to everybody on the planet. We ain't that smart. I'm sorry. These people are not that smart. I don't give them that kind of credit. their moves are indicative of somebody giving them orders, because it's just some of the stuff that they do. It's not like if you had this master plan and you was a genius, you would move differently. It's more as if you have people that's being told what to do, and they have to move correctly the first time, and they don't seem to always get it right. And that whole 9/11 fiasco with the plane going through the building is just a hint about that. But everything points to these beings being here and being not human and taking control of the power structure on the planet. So these beings exist. I believe that they at some point turned Saturn from a sun into what it is now, and they had control of it as well as the moon, which a lot of people will tell you they believe is artificial. So yeah, again, before we keep going, we're going to get into a lot of things that's spooky. And as I said, when you get to this level of information, which this is part 6, the first 5 was about a bunch of stuff. But when you get to this level of information, it's not but so much facts that we have. But I always do what if then, as I talked about before when I do my research. If this is true, why is this way? If it's not true, then why is that way? This is how I approach my research, and I tell a lot of people to approach it that way as well. When you approach research that way, you can eliminate a lot of bullshit. So when you step back and look at everything, it's, there's no way in the world they could have kept this up for thousands of years if it wasn't something there with this kind of knowledge. So that's one thing. But it's because of them, we have been trapped in this material body, because we lost consciousness, we lost the knowledge and understanding of who we were and the ability to tap into, knowledge. Now the moon, I've shown you in a lot of movies how the moon is destroyed. The moon is destroyed in so many different movies, and it's trying to tell you something. So when we talk about this war, when you look at the moon, one, is so many craters on the moon, as if, the moon has been attacked repeatedly. Now, to tell you that a volcano erupted on the moon, and that's the cause for some of the scorch marks that's on the moon, because there are scorch marks on the moon. That's bullshit. How come no volcano has erupted since existence that we could see? And when you look at a lot of the craters, they say, well, it's a result of meteors hitting the moon. And you got to understand, we can see the moon, of course, from Earth. And when you look at these craters, if a meteor, from space hit the moon in a lot of these places, because you have some of these craters that are not that deep, there's no way the craters would be as shallow as they are. They would be a lot deeper. A lot of the craters are shallow. And when you look at a lot of the, you see these little dark marks on the moon, a lot of people believe that the outer part of the moon, the part we see all the time, the gray part that looks like it's gray sand or what have you, that's an outer facade, and that dark part is a titanium hull of a hollow moon. When you really get into it, and there's a lot of books out there who built the moon that really digs into the moon and just asks a lot of questions that make a lot of sense. And everything points to the moon being a construct and being perfectly put in precise position in relation to the sun and our planet for a reason. So what is that reason other than something that is going to affect this planet in a negative way, especially with all of the deception that's surrounded? So when you look at it, you can see clearly that something is up. Now, in order for meteors to hit the moon at the rate that it looks like it's been hitting them, one, we can look up and see it. So that means these meteors would have had to go around the planet, which has a gravitational pull, and then go up and hit a lot of these places on the moon. It's just a lot of these things, when you look at them, it's just like common sense stuff. Like, that's bullshit. It's no way. So it looks as if the moon was attacked, and the only way that these craters in a lot of places make sense is as if they was coming from Earth, as if it was, some kind of attack on the moon, and they were trying to blow up the moon. Again, as I talked about before, when you fly across the planet, when you have flown as much as I have, you see the planet. I mean, a lot of places I've flown over look like scorched earth. It just looked like something happened. And I'm talking about at the middle of America, when you fly across the U.S., it's a large part that look like ruins, that look like scorched earth. Take the flight from Philly to Phoenix, or from Philly to Vegas, East Coast, to Vegas. You can see what I'm talking about. Anybody that's taken that flight and looked out the window, you know what I'm talking about. It looks crazy. And again, when you look at where we live, we occupy probably 10 to 20% of the state in almost all the states in America. The rest of the state is just empty space. Now, it's hard for people to fathom that, but you got to understand, we have roads. That's what roads are built for. Roads are made so you go a certain way. So if it ain't no road there, I mean, you're not going to drive in the middle of nowhere. There's no civilization, there's no gas station, no stores or what have you. You're most likely not going to go out there. So a lot of people follow the roads, and the roads take you away from certain areas for a reason. But when you fly across the U.S. and the planet, Europe as well, some stuff is just undeniable. And you can see that, stuff look crazy, it look weird. And we have not, as people, been able to individually go and really examine the planet and what has been taking place. We rely on researchers to do that. We don't really have the time. And then probably if you go into certain areas anyway, you're going to be stopped. But we bombarded with work. Got to do this, got better things to do. So we don't go and explore like that. Now, it's no coincidence that George Lucas created the Death Star and made it look like Iapetus, which is the moon of Saturn. He was trying to make that connection between Saturn and the moon and get people to understand that esoterically. And a lot of people did. When you start digging into the information, as I said, it's going to lead you to Kemet, it's going to lead you to Saturn, and you're going to start getting into Greek mythology, all the moons and everything like that. This is where all the stuff is leading. So I believe, from my research, from looking at everything, that Atlantis was the civilization that fought this war, and that they probably built some kind of weapon that was able to destroy the moon, but they was basically, destroyed before they could finish it. So when you think about the moon, which has a gravitational pull that is supposed to affect the tides on Earth, so if the moon is in fact a construct and can move like a Death Star, so to speak, then it could possibly affect the tides on Earth, which could cause a big enough wave to basically, send Atlantis, crashing underwater. And it's possibly what happened. A lot of the researchers will say that the ice that was covering basically all of Canada and some of the northern part of the United States basically melted. And that water basically is what caused the sinking of Atlantis, which is possible, but that could have also been done on purpose when you think about how fast that is supposed to have happened. And the fact that these people were smart, they were geniuses, they wouldn't have known, they would have understood that it probably wouldn't be a good idea to build Atlantis where it was because of the ice. And if that ice melts, what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that they would have known that, being as intelligent as they were, and probably would have took that into account. But, it's things that you have to look at when you get into the situation. But all accounts point to that. They point to them building this machine. A lot of times when you see the pictures of Atlantis, you see this tall, pointy tower. And it's weird when you go into the Bible, when you go into Genesis 11, 1 through 9, which another weird thing is when you look at Genesis 11, the first 9 verses is dealing with this tower. So you have Tower 9/11. So that's a weird thing right there. But when you get into Genesis 11, the first 9 verses talking about the tower, remember, it's talking about the tower that the children of men are supposed to build. And, everything that's talking about, remember, it's talking about in verses 6 and 7. It says, "And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." And we could possibly take that back to Atlantis. You can fit that with a lot of different things, but it makes you think about why this tower was destroyed, why the people were scattered, and basically that's what happened when Atlantis sank. It sank and the people were scattered, and Atlantis was supposed to be where, the hub for the consciousness of the people, that, when you go look at all these civilizations that had these pyramids, Atlantis was supposed to be the hub for that.